This is World Stories with me, Sumi Somaskanda. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, we meet a Turkish.com founder who's changing the face of digital marketing. We take a peek behind the curtains to see how salt is made in Tunisia. And Green Gourmet will take a look at a sustainable restaurant success in Chile. All that and more coming up. But first, we start out with a type of motorsport that's causing controversy in the Mideast. It's called drifting and involves making your car skid sideways or turn circles at high speeds. It's become hugely popular in Saudi Arabia with young Bedouins. They often meet on stretches of open highway in the desert near Riyadh. The problem is the sport is illegal and dangerous for both participants and fans. Malik Al-Rauki from MBC takes a closer look.
Criminal experts say Saudi Arabia's drifting culture has become a victim of its own success. The risky style of street racing has gained a dedicated group of followers, but fatalities among both drivers and spectators are common. And as more people show up to the races, the greater the chance of casualties when it goes wrong. Spectators often stand at the road's edge with no protection barriers of any kind. The authorities have launched several campaigns against drifting, also known as tafhit, but they've had little effect. This driver was caught drumming up spectators for an illegal drifting meet. Saudi Arabia's largest maximum security prison is filled with people charged with drifting or planning illegal races. Deaths caused by the sport are treated as criminally negligent homicides.
In early evening, we start telling people that we're racing that night, so we can get started with it right away.
How many cars take part?
More than 100.
More than 100?
Yes, more than 100 cars.
And the advertising?
3 or 4 people publicize the event in advance. We bring fireworks and drugs. We're prepared for anything. It's impossible to keep me from racing. There's just no way. I've got it in my blood.
Accidental deaths and injuries are commonplace, so much so that Saudi Arabia's drifting craze has been described by some as a 20-year crisis. If local authorities are making headway, it's barely noticeable. Many drifters are ethnic Bedouins who are often marginalized and face discrimination in Saudi society. The conservative kingdom severely limits entertainment possibilities. Even cinemas are banned.
The young drifting racers are drawn by the wide empty spaces, which they say are ideal for racing. And they also attract people who have some financial interest, drug dealers, for instance. Others are drawn because of sexual or homosexual interests. The whole phenomenon should be investigated and understood in an academic context. We're not just talking about the younger generation, but about why this is attractive to young people. And it's not just the economic and financial factors that play a role, but social and psychological constellations. We're talking about problems we've been warning about for a long time now, but they've never been suitably dealt with, and now they're manifesting themselves in criminal phenomena.
The roads and highways can only be effectively patrolled if surveillance and traffic enforcement are improved. This may be the only way to control the fast and furious sport, and if possible, put a stop to it.
Earlier this year, the United Nations issued an alarming report with a clear message. We have to survive, not stop climate change. From droughts to floods, melting ice caps and superstorms, many scientists believe the trends we attribute to climate change can no longer be reversed. So instead, the focus is shifting to adapting. Our next story takes us to Bangladesh, a country that's been called the ground zero of global warming. Tens of millions of people there live on coastal plains, and rising sea levels are threatening their very existence. But as James here from UNTV shows us, farmers are learning how to adapt.
Nurul Islam grows rice on land that may soon be underwater. Here by the southeastern coast of Bangladesh, climate change-related sea level rise threatens to submerge 1 million hectares of agricultural land, displacing 40 million people, many of them farmers like Nurul.
There are more storms and they are no longer predictable. Sometimes if we have crops, we cut them and tie them to containers which float. Within 2 or 3 hours, the water recedes. Then we struggle to start all over again.
Nurul and his family have already been displaced once. When their farm was washed away 12 years ago, they moved here to this char, or new land, created naturally from layers of silt carried in rivers flowing down into the Bay of Bengal. But after more than a decade on Nolar Char, Nurul and his family still live without electricity and running water, and saltwater intrusion has become a growing threat to his crops.
There is no dam. The high tide floods our land and sweeps away our seedlings. We replant, but by the time the season comes to an end, the crop doesn't grow as it should, and there is less yield.
In some cases, yields are half of what they should be. And as a result, poverty and malnutrition are growing in coastal communities. To avoid a bigger crisis, farmers need to adapt to climate change, says Thomas Rath from the International Fund for Agricultural Development, or IFAD.
People have to adapt their livelihoods, have to adapt their production patterns, have to adapt the way they generate income to the changing environment. So in terms of agriculture has to invent and develop technologies that cope with the effects of climate change.
Some of what Rath talks about is happening here on another accrued patch of land known as Boyer Char. Newly constructed sluices trace the coastline and prevent salt water from contaminating freshwater canals. Embankments are built high enough to hold back a 7-meter rise in sea level. Farmers, too, are being armed with training and new technologies. Anyana Baladas harvests a high-yielding variety of rice, specially bred to grow in salinated water.
With this variety, we earn more. We can pay our children's school fees, and we can also save a bit.
Improving farmers' incomes while protecting them from climate change threats is the focus of an ambitious development project involving 6 branches of government and international donors like IFAD. Zainal Abedin is deputy team leader.
Many people lost their land 2 times or 3 times even. Now we provided them many protections and they are now saved at least.
So far, about 1 million coastal people have been assisted by the project. And now, back on Nolar Char, Nurul and his neighbors will soon be among them. Helping farmers adapt to climate change will be a critical challenge in the coming decades. The UN is working with world leaders to ensure farmers and world food supplies will thrive for years to come.
We now head to Istanbul, a booming, bustling city where East meets West and where the creative economy is thriving. In our next story, Murat Turkbekmaz from Emerging Stars introduces us to an entrepreneur who's created a successful digital marketing company. He and his team call themselves the head turners of today's attention economy. That certainly got our attention. Let's take a look.
We're in Istanbul, Turkey, visiting 4129, a company named after Istanbul's coordinates. Here we meet CEO and founder Alemsa Öztürk, a self-proclaimed gamer and dreamer who's built one of Turkey's leading creative digital marketing agencies.
We are a digital marketing agency. We do digital marketing for different brands. So what we do is usually we create campaigns, creative campaigns, on different digital platforms in order to create a conversation between brand and the consumer. That's what we do.
Alemsa began working as a webmaster for an internet company when still a teenager. 2 years later, he was a digital designer, after which he took the big step and leapt into entrepreneurship, deciding to create his own agency.
How did you get into this business?
I started very early. When I was 18, I was studying computer science engineering, and I realized that that's not the thing for me, because it looks like after the graduation, the only thing that I'm going to do probably is programming. But the reason that I started the whole computer engineering thing was to create games. And I realized that very early to my luck.
Alemsa started working for an internet company as a webmaster when he was still a teenager. 2 years later, he started working as a digital designer, and after that, he started his own agency.
When I started 4129, I was 29 and almost 30. And the thing is, I've been known in the business almost 12 years. So there was lots of brands who wants to work with me if I started an agency. Okay, this is the creative part. These two sections is the creative guys, so the art directors and the copywriters. So they are doing different stuff, like working on ideas, designing part. This part is social media. So we have social media content creators, brand managers, and the management team, social media community managers, all here. When we started this office, we were 23 people. Like half of the office was empty. Now we are almost 50, which is way above the capacity. That's why we are moving into a new place in like a month or so. So it's a little bit crowded now.
We are responsible for making some creative projects like creative social media campaigns and some Facebook and Twitter campaigns, applications.
Responsible for creative content, being in creative projects.
Alemsa Öztürk, one of the most creative and successful Turkish social media entrepreneurs. When at home, he likes to unwind playing games with his twins. Is relaxing with his family the secret behind his bubbling creativity and success?
Because I think I'm getting lots of energy from them. It's helping me more focus, and I'm more relaxed when I'm working because I have a happy place to come back to, and I think that's very important. Main campaign idea was run for the red, because they use color red, so they said that run for the red, and we come up with the idea that if you're using run for the red tagline, why not make people really run to the red, to the ATMs? So we created this guerrilla campaign where we ask people, we are going to give you $600 if you run to the ATM when we send you an SMS. This is a very unusual thing, if you think about the whole digital marketing thing, but there was more than 20,000 people registered and more than 3,000 people who really run to the ATMs. And in the end, the usage of ATMs increased 23%, which is incredibly high. So it was a very successful campaign, and it's very different from the usual stuff. From the very beginning, we did huge projects, very innovative things, which most of the agencies couldn't dream of, or when they think about it, they are afraid that they are not going to pull off. So I think that's one of the things that makes us very special. We are the daredevils of the industry, and that's why when a brand wants something different, they always come to us.
If Facebook was a real country, it would never have made it through the dark ages. They've got their castles, battles, empires, diamonds, farms, zoos, and kittens. They've even got a currency. But they haven't got a single bank, until now.
And when people like or use or become part of the things that you are creating, it's a very, very inspiring feeling. And I just hooked up with the whole thing, and I think that's why I don't think as this is my job, but as a part of me. It's part of my lifestyle. And with that I think success comes.
In medieval times, salt was an extremely valuable commodity, referred to as white gold. It was even traded as currency back then. Today, it's easily accessible. You can find it in pretty much every kitchen. But just where does it come from, and how is it made? In our next report, Maher Jamaidan takes us to Tunisia's Mediterranean coast, where we get to see how workers there produce sea salt that lands on tables around the world.
This is the salt of the earth. Tons of it can be found in low-lying areas along the Mediterranean seacoast. These are the salt basins of Sakline in Tunisia's Monastir Governorate. For more than 100 years, the salt makers, or wallers, have been producing sea salt here. Sea salt can be harvested from May to September. The wallers have to put in long days to keep up with the demand.
Salt was harvested here in Monastir for the first time in 1903. But then the colonial rulers interfered. Salt has been produced continuously in Sakline since October 6, 1949.
Vast quantities of seawater are evaporated from the basins in late summer, leaving behind a layer of salt half a meter thick. Then, peak harvest season begins and lasts for about 2 months. First, the remaining seawater is pumped and drained out of the basins. Then graders move in and even out the thick salt layer. The salt is loaded onto trucks and transported to the washing plant.
Here, the salt is washed in fresh water. Then it's dried and carried to storage on a conveyor belt. When the salt passes through this strong pump, it comes out very clean.
The plant can wash the salt by the ton. Sand and other impurities are removed in the mechanical process, which is repeated several times until all that remains are these clean, glittering mounds of salt. A laboratory tests the quality of the salt and determines what it should be used for.
We conduct the quality inspection. Our work starts midway through the harvest season. We take samples of raw salt from the basins, and then we analyze them in the lab.
In the drying plant, the salt is put through a sieve, packed in bags, and sold on domestic and foreign markets. The raw salt is exported to Europe through Tunisia's commercial ports and used to melt snow on wintry roads.
The salt factory in Sakhalin produces 3 types of salt. Table salt for sale in 1, 20, and 25 kilogram bags, industrial salts, and export salts.
The water is pumped back into the basins. Every year, the sea salt collects in them naturally with the help of the sun and the wind.
From the sea to the table, which is exactly where our next report takes us. We get to know the Botas, a couple from South Africa that's opened up an innovative restaurant in Chile's scenic wine region. The concept behind the restaurant is simple: use what nature provides. Malena Rodriguez Suarez from UCV-TV explains.
Among the vineyards of Chile's serene Casablanca area is a restaurant that's become very popular with locals and foreign tourists alike. David and Carmen Bota are the owners. In 2008, they packed their bags and set out from their native South Africa in search of new horizons on other continents.
And I did business in Chile for many years. For 20 years I've been coming to Chile to sell mining machinery, which I made. And Chile was a very good client of mine. So for 20 years I've been coming here. And I always thought I would like to come here and live here for some years.
Decided we wanted to have a new adventure, and we came to Chile to open something here. And we decided, because the wine region, we love to cook, we decided to open a restaurant.
The result of the couple's new adventure is Casa Bota. David and Carmen opened the doors on their Chilean dream in 2010, and the restaurant quickly earned a stellar reputation. But the excellent food and personal atmosphere aren't the only attractions. The building itself is well adapted to its natural surroundings. It embodies a respect for nature that helps make it an inviting and unique place.
We built it ourselves, and we used all recycled material. We are very eco-friendly, and this is one of our philosophies.
The Casa Bota runs entirely on renewable energy, setting an example for other eating establishments here and around the world. Solar energy is used to pump water from a well. Photovoltaic collectors generate electricity for the lighting, refrigeration, and water heaters. David and Carmen try to make the best use of nature's gifts and to live in harmony with their surroundings, a harmony their guests can feel.
We are quite green, my husband and us, so we love nature, and also because you can, in Chile there is a lot of sun, and everybody has to think about doing something that is energetically viable.
Electricity is destined to become more and more expensive. It is never going to become less expensive. So a wise person would consider using some alternative energy, and because Casablanca has so much sunlight, solar energy is viable.
The unique atmosphere, the tasty dishes, and the impeccable service, combined with a healthy portion of respect for the environment, make Casa Bota a destination for many foreign tourists and regulars alike.
All right, that's all for this week's edition of World Stories. For all of us here and our partner stations around the world, we want to thank you for watching. You can check out this show and many more at our website. That's dw.de/worldstories. Before we go, we've got this week's Picks of the World for you. Enjoy. See you next time.